You are about to hear a story that comes from a report published by Citrini Research called the 2028 Global Intelligence Crisis. And you need to understand what it is before you react to it. This is not a prediction, it is a thought exercise written in the voice of a future macro memo designed to make you notice risks that most people are not modeling yet. But even as a thought exercise, it should alarm you in a healthy way. Not panic, not hopelessness. Healthy alarm. The kind that makes you check the exits before the smoke shows up. Because the core idea is simple and disruptive. What if your artificial intelligence bullishness stays correct? And that correctness becomes bearish for the human economy. You are going to use this report as a lens to understand how artificial intelligence could reshape jobs, wages, consumer spending, mortgages, business models, and even government capacity. And what you can do now, while time is still on your side. You live in a world where most artificial intelligence conversations sound like this. More productivity, more innovation, more wealth, more convenience. Citrini Research does not deny that. In fact, the report assumes artificial intelligence keeps improving faster than expected. The shock comes from what happens next. If machine intelligence becomes abundant and cheap, the economy can produce more output with fewer humans. That sounds good until you remember a basic truth. Humans are the spending engine. If household income falls while output rises, you can create a world where the numbers look great, the market looks great, and daily life for millions feels worse. The report calls this gross domestic product, output that appears in national accounts but does not circulate through households the way it used to. In simple terms, the economy is working, but people are not. This is the first warning you need to take seriously right now. Citrini Research describes a feedback loop that does not behave like a normal recession. In a normal cycle, something breaks, demand falls, costs adjust, and eventually the cycle heals. In this scenario, the engine of the downturn is also the engine of productivity. The loop works like this. Artificial intelligence capability improves, companies reduce payroll, displaced workers spend less, demand softens, margins tighten, firms invest more in artificial intelligence to protect margins, and capability improves again. You should notice what is missing from that loop. A natural stopping point. The system does not correct itself because the core driver is not cyclical. It is structural. Artificial intelligence keeps getting better and cheaper, so the incentive to substitute away from expensive human labor keeps strengthening. This is why the report calls it an intelligence displacement spiral. It is not one round of layoffs. It is a mechanism that can reinforce itself quarter after quarter. The report begins the disruption where it is easiest to see. Software. In late 2025, agentic coding tools jump in capability. Suddenly, a competent developer working with these tools can reproduce the core functionality of many mid-market software products in weeks. Even if the internal build is imperfect, a new reality appears in procurement conversations. In-house becomes an option. And once it becomes an option, even as a threat, it changes renewal negotiations. Discounts deepen. Pricing power weakens. Differentiation collapses because features become easier to build for everyone. Here is the part that should alarm every professional, not just software people. The report argues that the disruption model changed. Incumbents do not resist this wave like Kodak or Blockbuster did. They cannot afford to. They adopt artificial intelligence aggressively because it is the only lever to protect margins and survive competitive compression. So the threatened companies become the most aggressive adopters. Each firm's response is rational. Collectively, the result is a system that accelerates displacement. Then the report brings the disruption into your life. It describes the moment when agents stop being something you use and become something that quietly runs in the background. They do not wait for you to click. They optimize continuously based on your preferences. This is convenience, but it is also economic dynamite because much of the modern economy is a rent layer built on human limitations. Humans have limited time, limited patience, limited attention, and limited willingness to compare options. Entire industries exist because you get tired and accept the default. Machines do not get tired. So friction starts collapsing across categories. Subscriptions that rely on inertia, insurance renewals that depend on passivity, travel booking that profits from search complexity, routine legal and tax work that profits from tedious paperwork, and platform businesses whose moat is habit. The report uses a simple idea that should stick in your head. An agent does not have a home screen. It does not open the same app because it is familiar. It checks all options and chooses the best one every time. That destroys habitual loyalty, and habitual loyalty is a moat for a shocking number of companies. Once agents reduce friction, the report argues that they begin dismantling intermediation. Companies whose business model is collecting fees for helping humans navigate complexity. The moment complexity becomes easy for machines, intermediation compresses. You should not think of this as some startups might fail. You should think of it as a broad repricing of business models built on human slowness. In the report's narrative, everything that monetizes friction becomes vulnerable. And then comes the next level. Agents start eliminating fees in the plumbing itself. If machines are transacting with machines, repeating costs like transaction fees become obvious targets. The report frames this as the moment disruption stops being a product story and becomes an infrastructure story. This is the heart of the Citrini Research alarm. Markets often treat disruption as sector specific. The report argues that is the wrong model because the economy is not just jobs, it is spending, and spending in many economies is driven disproportionately by professional incomes. When those incomes are structurally impaired, you do not need unemployment to hit crisis levels to see huge effects. You can have modest job loss in high income cohorts and still create a large hit to discretionary demand because those households are the demand base for much of the consumer economy. The report describes the dinner party test. You do not need to stare at statistics. You just need to talk to people. Professionals start spending like they might be next. They save more. They delay purchases. They stop renovating. They skip holidays. They avoid risk. That behavior change spreads like weather. And once demand weakens, companies have even more incentive to protect margins by buying more artificial intelligence and cutting more payroll. The loop tightens. Citrini Research then adds a key accelerant: finance. A lot of private credit was built on assumptions that certain revenues would remain stable and recurring. If artificial intelligence disrupts those categories faster than expected, defaults rise. The danger is not only losses, the danger is recognition and opacity. Figuring out who holds what risk and how interconnected the bets are. The report describes this as a daisy chain of correlated bets, where many parts of the system were implicitly relying on one thing: stable white-collar income and productivity growth. Even if you do not care about private credit, you should care about what it represents: leverage built on assumptions about the human economy. Now the report hits the most emotionally sensitive part of modern life: housing. Mortgage underwriting assumes your income stays roughly stable for decades. In the report scenario, the loans were good when they were written. The world changed after. If professional income expectations reset downward and hiring remains weak, even high credit score households can become stressed. Not immediately. Often there is a lag. But the danger is that many households can remain current while quietly draining savings, increasing other debt, and cutting spending sharply. The report frames this as a dangerous transition. You are not watching a classic subprime crisis. You are watching a potential repricing of income stability itself. That should make the current generation sit up straight, because housing is not just an asset. It is the foundation of how families plan their lives. Citrini Research makes one more point that you cannot ignore. Institutions move slowly. Government revenue is heavily tied to wages and employment. If output shifts toward machine production and away from human income, receipts weaken. At the same time, the demand for support rises. So the government is pressured to transfer more money to households precisely when it collects less from them. That creates political conflict, delay, and distrust. Meanwhile, artificial intelligence capability keeps accelerating. This is why the report says the real villain is time. Not one company, not one policy, time. This is where you stop consuming the story like entertainment and start using it as preparation. You begin by treating your readiness like a three-part plan: skills, stability, and positioning. You strengthen what makes you difficult to replace. You do not chase the illusion that you can outrun machines at raw information processing. Instead, you double down on what society still needs humans for at scale: judgment, accountability, trust building, leadership, negotiation, ethical decision making, context, taste, and the ability to coordinate people through uncertainty. You learn to work with agents as a baseline capability. In the coming years, being effective with artificial intelligence will be like being effective with email or spreadsheets. It will not be a specialty, it will be a minimum. Your advantage comes from being the person who can direct, validate, and govern the output, especially where mistakes are costly. You reduce fragility in your life plan. You assume income volatility is more possible than it used to be. You build buffers. You keep options open. You avoid building your identity and financial structure on a single employer, a single niche, or a single assumption of steady income growth. And you broaden your awareness of business model risk. You start looking at industries and roles through the lens the report highlights. Is the value created by genuine differentiated expertise and human trust? Or is it mostly monetized friction that an agent can remove? This is not fear. This is strategic adulthood. You take away that the most uncomfortable scenario is not that artificial intelligence fails, but that it succeeds faster than society adapts. You see how output can rise while household circulation weakens, creating gross domestic product. You understand why incumbents may adopt artificial intelligence aggressively rather than resist, accelerating displacement. You recognize that agents reduce friction, and friction is a revenue model for much of the modern economy. You see how the risk can shift from a sector story into a systemic story once income stability, credit assumptions, and housing confidence are challenged. And you learn that time is the real battleground. Capability accelerates at technology speed while institutions adapt at human speed. If you want more breakdowns like this, where you take a serious report like Citrini Research's The 2028 Global Intelligence Crisis and translate it into what it means for your career, your finances, and your future, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment with one thing you are going to do this year to become less fragile in an artificial intelligence driven world.